Americans are cutting corners on groceries, gas, and entertainment as inflation sits at 3.8%, and the Iran war just keeps fuel prices elevated. A new study finds improv theater specifically helps anxious teens in ways that meditation and board games don't. And the reason why actually makes some intuitive sense. And the USS Abraham Lincoln has been at sea for 260 days with no announced return date, extended twice past its original May deployment end, and multiple sailors are so burnt out they're attempting to go overboard. Every day the news cycle produces roughly 1,000 stories. About 6 of them are about politics, and it's all anyone talks about. But not this guy, I went looking for the rest. This is New Side Quest. The Washington Post published a piece yesterday that is the most human version of the economic data we've been tracking all year. Not the numbers, but the specific choices real people are making in their lives. As the war in Iran approaches the 6-month mark, remember when it was only going to be a couple days? Inflation has settled at 3.8%, the highest since May of 2023. Gas prices surged when the conflict began in February and have basically remained there. Grocery prices are up 33% since 2019, and the behavioral changes are now showing up clearly in consumer data. Consumers across the country are actively cutting corners, delaying non-essential purchases and reevaluating their weekly expenses to cope with rising fuel and grocery bills. Dollar General CEO Todd Vassos said on the company's quarterly call that many of their core customers reported cutting back on other household expenses, including food purchases, who needs that, due to rising gas prices, and that the company was adding more $1 items to appeal to customers. The K-shaped picture we've been tracking all year shows up in spending data too. Middle-income families are squeezing more life out of every dollar before deciding to spend it. Higher-income earners are being bolstered by a strong stock market. The S&P is up more than 10% for the year and might not feel the squeeze as acutely. In our house, we've been kind of second-guessing ourselves on spending and leaning harder on generic brands. Obviously with the specific exception of cereal, because there's just no world in which I'm eating Admiral Snap for breakfast. There's a category of small, specific, arguably irrational holdouts that everyone seems to have. The thing that's too connected to who you are or too tied to a reliable daily pleasure or simply too non-negotiable to sacrifice even when everything else is on the table. The research on psychological resilience during economic stress actually supports keeping those things. The complete elimination of pleasure and comfort is not a sustainable approach to financial difficulty. Strategic sacrifice combined with deliberate preservation of what matters most tends to produce better mental health outcomes than cutting everything. So what have you actually changed in the last year because of cost, and what's the one thing you won't cut no matter what happens?
We got no food, we got no jobs, our pets' heads are falling off!
A research team in Europe published a new study in social and emotional learning, research, practice, and policy this week that tests 3 classroom interventions head-to-head: improvisational theater, mindfulness, meditation, and emotion-focused board games. I kind of want to know what those are. The findings did not show an overall improvement in students' social and emotional skills across the board. However, they did reveal different effects depending on students' anxiety levels at the start of the study. Improvisational theater stands apart from the other 2 activities. After 9 sessions, the students involved show improvements in cognitive empathy and in their willingness to collaborate. The improvements were most pronounced in students who entered the study with higher anxiety levels. Unlike conventional theater, improv has no script or no preparation, hence the name. Everything happens in the room, in the moment, with whoever's in front of you. The foundational rule of improv, yes and, requires you to accept whatever your partner offers as real and build on it rather than rejecting or redirecting it. The other core rule is that there are no mistakes, only new directions. Both of those rules do specific psychological work. First of all, they reduce the cost of failure to zero, which is exactly what anxiety amplifies. Anxious teens aren't afraid of improv scenes. They're afraid of doing the thing wrong, being judged and having that judgment confirmed. Improv systematically dismantles that fear by making the wrong thing structurally impossible. Earlier research on the same question, following 268 Detroit high school and middle school students through a 10-week improv program, found that 43% of students who screened positive for social phobia at the start no longer screened positive afterwards. I feel like this might actually tie back to the third place conversation that keeps popping up. Improv class is a structured group activity in a non-digital, non-academic, non-competitive environment where the explicit goal is to be present with other people and respond to what they actually bring to the table. That is almost exactly the description of what a functional third place provides. Informal, inclusive, focused on connection rather than performance. The fact that it's working for anxious teens is partly about improv specifically and partly about the scarcity of any environment that has those qualities in their lives right now. Have you ever done something that forced you to be spontaneous and unscripted in front of other people, and what did it do to your anxiety about doing it?
So first, we need a historical event. Who's got an event?
9/11.
Okay. Maybe something else. All right, let's start with a person.
Robin Williams.
Okay, all right, for real, guys, for real. Who's got a person?
Robin Williams on 9/11.
All right, we've heard from these guys. Let's maybe give somebody else over here a chance. How about a location? Let's go with a location.
The offices of Charlie Hebdo.
Okay, seriously, sir, I just need a location.
Ferguson, Missouri. German Wings cockpit.
Okay, I heard Starbucks.
No, you didn't.
Nobody said Starbucks.
All right, Starbucks. Okay, now who's in the Starbucks?
Bill Cosby.
You people are monsters.
The USS Abraham Lincoln is a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier homeported in San Diego. It left on November 21st on what was scheduled to be a standard 7-month Pacific deployment. It was redirected to the Middle East when the Iran War began in February and has been conducting combat operations ever since. As of Wednesday, the crew of 5,000 sailors and Marines has been at sea for more than 260 days, one of the longest aircraft carrier deployments in modern history, and the ship has logged 250 consecutive days without a port visit, a record in the modern era. The deployment has been extended twice. No return date has been announced. Multiple military publications and members of Congress are sounding the alarm about a mental health crisis on board. Navy Times and Stars and Stripes have both reported multiple attempts by sailors to go overboard. One sailor's wife told Military Times that her husband is now on medical hold after attempting to jump from the carrier. She said, quote, "He's scared. He thinks he'll get a dishonorable discharge, and just because he was burnt out, his 13-year career is ruined just like that. It's not fair. It's not right. That's not what he should be worrying about right now." Sailors reportedly face moldy conditions, food shortages, and lack of basic necessities. The Secretary of Defense previously dismissed food shortage claims as fake news, because of course he did. More than 200 family members attended a meeting in San Diego last week with Acting Secretary of the Navy. During a separate virtual meeting, families raised concerns about sailors' mental health, exhaustion, and safety. Vice Admiral Joseph Cahill acknowledged the strain. He said, quote, "We hear you loud and clear regarding the impact this has on families, on service members, and the long-term ability of us to stand and sustain our force's health," unquote. I want to be clear about what this story is and isn't. It isn't a story about sailors being weak or failing to perform their duties. It's a story about what happens to human beings, any old human beings, when the support systems they were promised disappear and the endpoint they were told to expect keeps moving. The research on prolonged separation from family and support networks is unambiguous. Human beings are not built for indefinite isolation in high-stress environments. Mental health deterioration under these conditions isn't a character failure, it's a predictable physiological and psychological response to conditions that exceed what the body and mind can sustain indefinitely. That's less than ideal. These are people who signed up to serve, were told when they'd come home, had the date moved twice with no replacement given, and are now in a situation where their military careers may be affected by the physiological consequences of the conditions they've been placed in. The wife's words stay with me. He was burnt out. His 13-year career may end for dereliction of duty, but for the completely predictable consequence of too much for too long without any relief. Have you or someone you know served in circumstances that tested the limits of what a person can sustain and what got them through or what didn't?
It's a desolate, ugly little planet with absolutely no natural resources or strategic value. Questions?
Why is this godforsaken planet worth dying for?
Don't ask me. You're the one who's going to be dying.
Scientists have discovered a blind eyeless cavefish in an Alabama cave system described as a local Area 51 and have informally named it the demon cavefish due to its pale, eyeless appearance adapted to complete darkness. I did not have demon creatures invade Alabama on my bingo card for August. Also, I want to add that the fish is not actually demonic and cannot be held responsible for its aesthetic choices.
Now, let's not all panic at once. We'll have to take shifts.
A 2,400-year-old tomb of a possible ancient professional wrestler has been discovered in Turkey, with physical evidence of the burial suggesting the individual had the bone structure and joint wear consistent of a lifetime of competitive grappling. Archaeologists could tell he was a pro wrestler because he was buried with a steel chair.
It's still real to me, damn it!
Harry Potter fans successfully forced a multi-million-dollar pipeline diversion to protect the informal grave of Dobby the house elf. A rock came and tribute site in Wales that fans have maintained for years at the filming location where the character was buried in the movies. Fictional people deserve to have their fictional burial places honored.
Dobby is free.
Thieves made off with 210 mini Mozart statues during a ceremony honoring the composer's anniversary, walking away with the entire tribute display without being noticed. Their security protocols probably need revisiting if someone can actually walk away with 210 statues completely undetected.
You filthy criminals.
That's it for New Side Quest. 3 questions out there for your consideration. What you've actually changed because of cost, and the one thing you won't touch. Something that forced you to be spontaneous and unscripted in front of others, and what it did, and whether you or someone close to you has served in circumstances that tested the limits of what a person can sustain. Email me at newsidequest@gmail.com or slide into the Substack comments. See you tomorrow.